when I saw some of your posts, people are really mean.
When the show first came out, and I mean, everyone was like Team Kelly, Team Kenny. And then I said no at the altar, and everyone was like, you're going to die alone. You're going to be alone forever. And they would send me, just hateful messages. And the comments were like, oh, well, Kenny's better off. He dodged a bullet with you. You don't know. He actually broke my heart.
Right. And obviously you're not going to say that, which is even more proof that you are such a good person that you're not going to get involved in that. This is Relatable, Relationships Unfiltered. Hey, welcome to Relatable, Relationships Unfiltered. Today I'm hanging out with TV personality and entrepreneur Kelly Chase. We're chatting about how her time on Love is Blind prompted her healing journey and where it's taken her since then. So you made a post yesterday, or at least I saw it yesterday. I think it was yesterday that you had put it out, about how Love is Blind was really like the catalyst for your healing. And I know that there's been, and as a self, do you identify as a self-love coach, or how do you identify with the self-love piece?
Yeah, I would say that. Self-love coach, expert, whatever. Yeah. Okay. So I'm not going to have a reign of titles.
we need to title you something.
Yeah.
That though, I think goes in hand for you, right? Like your healing journey, and then how that ties into the self-love. Tell me about that.
Yeah. So it was actually a year before we filmed Love is Blind. So we filmed Love is Blind in around October of 2018. About a year prior to was when I decided to leave my first 9-to-5 space and kind of just pursue health coaching. I was doing more so just nutrition and fitness coaching at the time. And I was I would really want to lean into this. I was receiving, from clients oh, you're changing my life. And I was Mom, I've been working in corporate America for 10 years and I've never heard anyone tell me that. So I decided to leave, and around the summertime of 2017. And I had connected with someone on Instagram, a guy who I was whoa, he's so cute. So of course, anytime you meet someone who's so cute, you want to know all the things about them. So it was just interesting because he was just very fascinating in the sense, we actually had gone through IIN. I think he had graduated a year before I did. We just had a lot of similarities in the way that we ate and just our health regimen. And anyways, but he was showing that he was reading personal development books and meditating and journaling and things like that. And I'm there's no guy that I know that does that stuff. So I just leaned in, and I think he was one of the first people to recommend some self-help books to me and, get me in the journaling and everything. And so I did, in the beginning of 2018, I read The Miracle Morning by Hal Elrod, and that I still practice to this day, the lifesavers technique or concept, I guess, that he describes in his book. So that was kind of the kickstart to my journey. And I decided to do everything different, meaning, like I said, I left the corporate to pursue entrepreneurship. So I was coaching. I was also I used to be party animal, social butterfly here in Atlanta. And I was not anymore. On a Friday night, I was reading a book or watching TV, because I also did not do that for a very long time. And my parents would call, hey, what are you doing? You're going out with your friends tonight? And I'm no, I'm reading a book, or I'm sitting on my couch. And they're are you okay?
Were you concerned?
Yeah, they were concerned for me. And I was no, I don't want to do that anymore. I don't want to go out drinking anymore. I mean, yeah, it was fun, but it's not getting me closer to my goals. I want to get married one day. And at this point, I was already over 30 years old. So I was 32, I think, at the time. And I was I think it has to change. Nothing changes if nothing changes. So I decided to make just a lot of very 360 or 180, however you want to say it, decisions in my life. And so I did, and it was beautiful. I started listening to podcasts and reading all the personal development books and just really choosing me during 2018. And there, it was almost to that point too, even in although I felt really alone, because, I had my friends that were still going out, who were single and still going out. And then I had my friends who were already settled down and getting married and having children and that type of thing. And I felt I was in the in-between. Like I didn't want to do that anymore, but I wasn't here yet. So I felt really alone. But although I felt lonely at times, I still didn't want to just like reach out to anyone to go do anything with me. Like, I would go on walks and I would go by myself because I'm like, well, I would like someone to be with me, but I don't just want it to be anybody. I want
Did you end up finding kind of like your niche? Did you find your pocket of people that are similar, that share that lifestyle?
Yeah. Yes, I was starting to find that here in Atlanta. But also honestly, like through one of the podcasts that I listened to, the woman had a Facebook group, and therefore it was a lot of like women entrepreneurs in like the health coaching space and life coaching space. So I connected with a handful of them then. And one of the girls actually resonated a lot with my story, meaning we had very similar journeys, and to which she was actually the mindset coach that I hired after filming Love is Blind.
Okay.
Yeah. So
very cool. Okay.
Yeah. But yeah, I'm still really good friends with a lot of those girls to this day. I mean, if I go but they weren't local to Atlanta. They were all in different states. So it was like I was making all these virtual friendships, but I was like leaning into it because I'm like, wow, they're doing things that I want to be doing, or things like we're all growing together. And it was just very uplifting. And like, I didn't mind having a mastermind call on a, Friday night instead of going to a bar,
What do you think it was about Love is Blind that prompted that healing? Like, what was that experience like for you that it was kind of, you got done and kind of like, oh shit, let me check in on some of this stuff. Yeah. What were some of those key moments for you that really shifted it for you?
Yeah. So when we got done filming Love is Blind, I know it's not necessarily total public knowledge, but Kenny and I had conversations about dating after filming. Mm-hmm. And we did not. And that was his decision. It was not mine. And it was like the last day of filming. He was just like, I'm not emotionally like available for one. I think that we just need to both get back to our lives again and like get back on routine. And I, like, in hindsight, and I even said this to him like later on, but I was like, at the time it just felt like I was totally rejected. Like I just shared my life with you, like not just what, we talked about on screen, off camera. We had very vulnerable moments. And so it just like, I like met someone so in such an intense environment and shared so many vulnerabilities within such a short time period. And then it was just gone and it was over. And I felt rejected. I felt lost. I just felt really disconnected. I felt like maybe all this work that I had done on myself over the last year didn't know where it went. Like I was like, oh my gosh, like I feel like even more broken than ever before. Right. And so in my mind, I was like, okay, well, you know what? I haven't been really working in my business for the last 7 weeks while we were filming. So I just need to like go all in on my business and like forget about this. And because that's what we do. We avoid things, avoid healing them. Right.
Right.
So, and this girl who I just mentioned, her name is Erin. She had gone from like health coaching herself into like the business and mindset coaching space. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to like, again, she just resonated with me in so many different ways. And so I decided to hire her as my business and mindset coach. And during the 4 months of us working together, I mean, within the first session, it was already like, what just happened? Like she did so much on my mind and like, shadow work and inner child healing and all of this stuff and reparenting. It was just like, what? I don't even know what you just did, but you're the therapist I never had that I probably needed these whole last 12 years of my life.
Right.
So, we discovered probably within those first few weeks though, because I had told her about the show and stuff. And she was like, do you feel like you are in love with him? Like, is that why you're so distraught basically? And I was like, no, like, yeah. I'm not in love with him. I said, obviously, because otherwise I probably would have said, yes, at the altar.
Sure.
I said, but what we, I guess, came up with was the fact that it was more so the pain of rejection that I was dealing with. And I was like, wow. And so of course that unraveled so much into like my deep rooted story of the fact I was rejected at the age of 4. Like that's my like first memory where I felt unloved or unwanted, that kind of thing. So I was like, wow. So that has been like my story throughout is like, I'm just always being rejected. You know, I think I've only, you know, broken up with 2 guys in my life. Like everything else is whether it was a committed relationship or a situationship of some sort, like I have been the one that has been let go.
Rejected.
So it's been a constant story for me. So yeah, it was like a lot of that just came up, and you know, and then we started obviously healing a lot of other things within my life, but it was just so fascinating. And I was like, oh my God, like I didn't realize like this is why, or overlooking red flags. Like, I mean, I do remember towards the end, maybe the last like week and a half or 2 weeks of our journey filming the show, there was like one time, like, I mean, Kenny and I were saying like, I love you to each other, you know, it was like, you know, and when we were able to, after we were filming in the pods and after we got back from Mexico, we lived in an apartment together, but we were going about our days. And so he would go to work and stuff, and he would call me on his way home and be like, okay, love you. I'll see you soon, you know? But there was a time he did not say, I love you. And that was my first, like my gut went like, huh, that was weird, but I didn't question it. I just kept going. And that's what another thing that I did.
Well, that's what we do with unprocessed trauma, right? That is because it is so much part of your programming. It's so much your norm that those feelings of rejection, whether they're overt of someone leaving you or they're more covert of not saying I love you. I mean, if that's part of the theme, it's something you get used to and something you expect. And so that is, I mean, it makes it that much easier to overlook those red flags when it's just part of your story, part of your programming. And that I was curious about that. So like prior to this, with that real rejection taking place, did you notice any of those triggers coming up, like even in the pods or like your interactions with people, especially because it is like so fast paced and so like so quick to reject, right? Or so, did you notice any of those trauma wounds surfacing during that time?
Not when we were, I want to say like not when Kenny and I were actually being filmed, not necessarily. It was more like when I was having one-on conversations with the producers. So like when you were watching the show and it was just like me talking.
Yeah.
So those, like, I mean, I cried every single time because they were digging deep into your past and they would bring up so much stuff. And again, it felt like a therapy session then too. But it was basically they were just re-exposing you to all of your emotions and your past trauma. And then they didn't really do anything with it. And now we're just like, and that was something else too. I'm like, you know, I don't understand. And I haven't ever had this conversation with them, but like why we weren't given, you know, mental health resources during that time, because they literally pulled all this shit up and then they were like, okay, go be wild on set while we film. Like,
well, with all of that activated trauma, and I know, and I've thought the same thing, because that's exactly what I thought when you said it was like a therapy session. And my first thought was like, except for the healing that comes along with therapy, right? So our vulnerabilities, we're willing to expose them. That was my first actual experience with therapy, actually, was I was in my early 20s. I'd been married for multiple years. I got married when I was 18. And so we inevitably ran into some issues, you know, within the first few years of that. And my first therapist that we worked with her together, but then we each saw her some individually. And that was a big part of it, is she kept like digging this stuff up and like really pointing out how fucked up my childhood was, like repeatedly. But then like, okay, see you next week. And I'm like, bitch, what am I going to do with all this? Like, you're like making my life so much worse. So that, like, as you're talking about that experience, like I can completely relate to that and the pain of that, because then you're just sitting in that and you're like, okay, thank you for reminding me of these horrible experiences, but now what? And I've said that about Love is Blind, and maybe I need to like send an email over their direction, because I'm like, hey, I'm happy to help you know, from the health perspective, because it's needed.
100%. Yeah, it is. It is absolutely needed. I mean, granted, maybe they did for season 2 and season 3. I don't think so, but you know, I don't.
They did not. I'm friends with Nick Thompson from season 2, and that's we've had similar conversations, and they're not. And he's done a lot of his healing after as well. So did you feel like that then, if you got like activated during those interviews, did that then influence how you interacted with like either the women or the men, or?
Right. No, I would say the only thing that I felt that I'm very aware of now is like how like I felt confident, but I really wasn't. Like I was very like with around the women, I was still very like I mean, granted, I'm an extrovert, but I'm introvert too. Like I'm very observant of everyone, and like in situations where I don't know people, like I'm probably more of a wallflower for a little while until like I get a little bit more comfortable. So, but I felt like I was that. Like I felt like I was just observing people. I was a lot more quiet than I normally am if I was in a different setting. I don't know. But
Right.
so I just felt like maybe my true personality wasn't really being revealed because I was like playing small or holding back or whatever, maybe more so around the women. Because around the men, I felt like we were having these very deep, very vulnerable conversations. I mean, I cried, but some of the guys did too during our like pod dates, like in our
Sure.
conversations. So I felt confident and like that I could expose myself and be very vulnerable. I mean, that was something over, prior to filming over that last year that I was working on was really tapping into my vulnerability and becoming stronger and knowing that vulnerability is such a strength and that's how you really can communicate and connect with people. And so I already had done like some work around like like who's my dream, like what my dream partner,
Sure.
how I want that person to feel to me. And being emotionally connected and vulnerable is one of those traits. And so I was looking for that. So when I was in the pods, those first couple of days of dating, anyone that was not giving me vulnerability, I was like, no. Surface level, I've done it. I don't want to do surface level. So my greatest 3 connections were based seriously on all vulnerable conversations that we had.
Well, and in that type of setting, I mean, what other option do you have, right? It has to be like the communication skills,
Right.
like what they're saying, how they're saying it. Were you doing therapy leading up to Love is Blind?
No. So I had gone to one therapist, one therapy session back when I was like 22, 23. I had, I guess, experienced like a sexual assault in college. And it was not a good situation at all. And anyway, so I went to one therapy session, and yes, this may have been my perception of things, but I felt that the therapist was quite condescending. Like, and like, I just remember her saying like, and you kept going back.
Oh.
And I was like, yeah, I mean, I did. Like, what are you, my mom? Because that's the question my mom's been asking me. Like,
that's so hurtful.
So it was very hurtful. And I remember my mom picking me up from the therapy session and she'd be like, did you book your next appointment? I was like, no, I'm fine. So I never went to therapy. I never did anything. And, as I said, when I was talking about like going into the mindset coaching, it's like we avoid feeling, we avoid healing. So that's what I did for 12 years was avoid anything. I was a chronic hustler. I worked multiple jobs. So not just worked a 9 to 5. I had multiple jobs on top of that, constantly binge drinking my face off on the weekend. So disconnecting in liquor, disconnecting in a job every single day of the week. And then there was a time in like 2014, 15, I got obsessive with like dieting and exercise. So I was like diving into that. And it's like, I was constantly doing and grinding and hustling and working and avoiding like being present. Like I said, I mean, I use TV now for self-care because I never sat on my couch to watch TV. I was constantly doing something or working on some type of something I needed to get done for a work project.
And did that shift then when you started with Aaron? That's when those changes happened of like, what was some of those initial even discoveries or, tools that allowed you to shift out of the avoidance?
Yeah. Yes, it was a lot of Aaron. I mean, obviously, like I said, a year prior to, I did leave the corporate space and like leaned into, just working full-time as an entrepreneur. And that was fine. That was great. But I didn't know that lesson. I just knew I had more free time now to do things. Because now, even although I've learned, okay, let's be in more of the being, less of the doing sometimes. And we don't have to succumb to the stories of this burnout culture and burnout society. It's like, okay, do what feels good. We have to work hard and we do have to like put effort into things oftentimes, but like that stuff was, yes, brought on by Erin. I mean, she taught me a lot about the masculine and feminine energy, that was a foreign concept to me. So I was like, okay, I get it. I understand. Like, and granted, over these last like 4 years since that, I've just been in this phase of like, I'm aware when I'm getting myself into that burnout again. Like, and I'm aware when I'm sitting on my couch and I'm like, I should be doing something right now because, you know, that's what we do. I should be doing something. I'm supposed to be doing something. I should be doing it this way. I should be. And it's like, hold on. Like, no, you should be just sitting on your couch right now and just being present because your body is telling you this is what you need.
Yeah.
So it's just been a lot. I mean, I've worked with a handful of coaches since working with Erin in 2018 or at the end of 2018. And I've just continued to do a lot of like work myself. I mean, I practice that lifesavers thing every morning. So I pour into my own cup every single morning. So at least I know, hey, at least I spent 10 minutes or 30 minutes or an hour on myself. And now I can pour into everybody else, you know, but in the evenings, I'm, you know, trying to find that work-life balance. Again, I just started I stepped back into the career space. But I say back into, and I always I hate when I say that because I'm like, that's not right. Like I'm investing in my future.
What are you doing currently? What is your transition?
Yeah. So I took on a role as an outside sales rep, going around to different law firms and requesting that they send their like workers' comp, personal injury, and motor vehicle accident clients to us.
Okay.
To our company. Our company is a like treatment and surgery center for those clients.
Got it. Okay. And what led to that decision? And is that feeling in alignment with the work that you've been doing?
In a way. Yeah. So, I mean, I will say, you know, as I mentioned in that reel, I was like, yeah, Love is Blind kind of screwed me up a little bit because I have been in this like coaching space for so long, and I'll just be so transparent here, but since the show rolled out, I have been battling my identity as far as like, am I a coach? Am I this like public figure? Am I this like newfound influencer? Like people don't want to, like, not to say people don't want what I have to offer. They do. It's just, I have been battling this like inconsistent entrepreneur life. Like I'm like, I'll promote some of my, like a course of mine, or I'll promote one-on-one coaching with me. And it just feels like I'm pulling teeth from people. And then I will post, you know, maybe I do some type of like influencer collaboration with a brand, and I'm like, and it gets 7 link clicks. Whereas I'm like, wow, 4,000 of you watched my story and only 7 of you thought that brand was, I don't know. So I'm like, there's just been this very big disconnect on my social media. I don't feel like my engagement's not where I would like it to be. And I know we shouldn't focus on that, but as an influencer, you kind of have to.
Well, of course. Yeah. Numbers matter.
Yeah, numbers matter in that regard. So it was just everything has just been very inconsistent. Obviously, it's created a lot of mental chaos. And when there's mental chaos, when there's chaos inside, there's chaos on the outside. So my bank account was dwindling, and I was like, I can't do this. Like my nervous system, I've done a lot of work. I just completed an entire program on nervous system, like, you know, parts integration and parts repair and all this stuff. And I'm like, I can't do this. Like my nervous system is freaking out. And like there's some family issues that I'm dealing with, and it's created a lot of stress. And I'm like, I need something in my life to be very consistent and stable right now. So I need my bank account to be stable. That's what I need. So,
and that's so valid. And that is a form of self-care because you're creating safety and security. So is it exactly what you want to be doing? Well, potentially not in this season, but it's serving, or maybe not long-term, but in this season, it's serving a purpose. And that is self-care, you know, for you to check in on, okay, I am feeling dysregulated. What is within my circle of control to fix that? And it's always like, what do you prefer, the problem or the solution, you know? Right. And so in your situation, that is your solution. I was curious about that in terms of your social media, because so we connected. I'm not sure if you posted me in your story.
Yes.
And so I started following you after that. And then when I saw some of your posts, people are really mean. Like, and I was like, one of the first posts, you were so cute. You were in like your wedding dress and stuff like that. It was like a reel or something. I was like, oh my God, that's the cutest thing. And I started scrolling down. I was like, holy shit, these people are really mean.
Yeah.
What is that like and I feel like, I know for all genders, everyone experiences it, But it just feels like, and especially probably because my relationship with Nick, and I know he's talked about that he gets horrible DMs as well, and he gets a lot of mean stuff also. But the stuff that was being said on yours, I haven't seen it said on his. And I would argue that's probably a gender difference.
Right.
How does that impact all the work that you do on self-love and rejection and all of that? What's that like for you?
Yeah. Now, well, let's put it this way. Now I would say that it kind of just, I don't pay too much attention to it. Just because I feel like I'm like, okay, guys, we're over it. Like, yeah, me posting a thing in my wedding dress, I was just being funny and relevant.
And it was
obviously.
so cute.
Yeah. And granted, like, yes, like it was, I'm going to always support Love is Blind. I mean, yeah, I'm going to always support the cast of Love is Blind. Let's put it that way, So I will probably watch the, future seasons to support them because I know what they're going to go through, you know? But, yes, people will say like, oh, you're just trying to stay relevant. And like all you do is talk about Love is Blind stuff. And I'm like, have you not been following me? Like, because obviously you haven't, because that, no, that's not what I talk about. I reference Love is Blind a lot because again, it was a huge part of my story and my journey. So yeah, I'm going to talk about it. But people saying things now too, I mean, catch me on a bad day. It's like, then it does bother me sometimes. And I do want to say something back to these people and, not rude. And I've never been rude to anyone. But, when the show first came out and I mean, everyone was like Team Kelly, Team Kenny. And then I said no at the altar and everyone was like, you're going to die alone. You're going to be alone forever. And they would send me, just hateful messages. And the comments were like, oh, well, Kenny's better off. He dodged a bullet with you. I'm like, fuck you. You don't even know me. I'm a really freaking good person. Yeah, it was very hard. I tried not to, especially when the show was coming out, I was trying not to look at my comments. Of course you catch the negative ones, but there was a lot of positive that came from it too. But I feel like my friends just kind of went to bat for me in my comment section a lot. Yeah. And they still will to this day. It's just, there's one or two that if they see it themselves, they will. I'll see they commented on a post and I'm like, what are they talking? They're just arguing with the person. I'm like, girl, it's not even. Don't waste your energy. Right. It doesn't matter. But yeah, I mean it doesn't matter how strong you are and how much mindset work you've done. You see something like that, it does bother you. I mean, it hurts. Yeah. It hurts. And you do want to stand up for yourself and you do want to back yourself up and give the real reason why things didn't work out or whatever. And you don't know. He actually broke my heart.
Right. And obviously you're not going to say that, which is even more proof that you are such a good person that you're not going to get involved in that. And obviously, these people just have way too much time on their hands and we could go down the whole list of why they're doing that. But that really got me thinking, especially as a self-love expert, that is going to ding up against your self-love. That is inevitably going to impact it. And so, obviously we can go down all the cliches of it should come from within and all of that. Sure. But at the end of the day, we're human and we are designed to crave acceptance. And so that, I would imagine that would get painful.
Yeah. It got really painful. And even, people knowing that I've been doing coaching too, I had launched a course on love, dating, and relationship stuff. Cause I'm like, I have learned so much from my, from my coaches, my mentors. And it was not a dating and relationship, hey, let me show you how to improve your relationship with others. It is a course to help you improve your relationship with yourself so that you change the energy and you learn to change the behaviors that have been attracting the same experiences over and over again. Because that's what I have learned to do. And for the most part anyways. But I would post something in that too. It's people are multiple things of, oh, you're just trying to get money from people or how can you give relationship advice when you're not even in a relationship? You said no at the altar, you're fucked up in the head and blah, blah. I'm like, oh my God, they're going to attack you for something. They just are. So it's
They'll find a reason.
We'll find a reason.
I created a reel the other day because I am a single relationship expert and people sometimes I don't really get a whole lot of a whole lot of pushback, more just like teasing from, friends or people. Like I haven't gotten anything, but I acknowledge it. But my big thing with that, and I'm sure you can relate to this, is that I've done the work to do a lot of the healing like on myself, and I can help people to do the same. And I know how to help people have healthy relationships. That is no bearing on if that's where I'm at in my life, if that is even what I want, which by the way, it's not. Like, that it's my choice to be single and to continue to help people to improve in their relationships. I just so happen to have a passion for relationships, but I don't necessarily want to be in one. And so I can totally relate with that, though, as, the single relationship expert. That is certainly something that comes up in conversation.
Yeah. But it's, again, like I said, like oftentimes comments don't bother me. Sometimes they do. Like I created a reel on TikTok one day, and I don't know, I think 2 of the 5 comments were something like, again, it being like, oh, you're just trying to stay relevant or something. And it bothered me that much. I literally like deleted the entire video because I was like, fuck off. Like, fine.
Today. Fine, you win. So what is your relationship status currently? What is your dating life like? Are you seeking that, or what does that look like?
I am seeking it. So I'm single. I want to say was in a situationship, over the last couple of years, and have tried dating, tried to be out of it, didn't talk to this person for quite a while. I mean, we went almost 9 months without talking once, tried to date in between, or actually I would say the first 6 months of that, I was trying to heal myself actually from it. But, because I do recognize that and I take time. I'm not the person that's just going to like jump into another relationship and not heal and learn the lesson from the previous one. That's what I've learned in these last 4 years, not to do that. I never did that really before, but I was just so unaware of what I was doing, But yeah, so I think that is a part of me, though, that I know that there's a little bit of lesson to still be learned and some healing and growth, and that I have not really, because I have not completely cut the ties, let's put it that way, with that person. And it's been like, why can't you, Kelly? Like, what are you holding on to? What are you afraid of? Like, that there can be better out there. Like, what story am I holding on to? But I'm learning to just be more about like the one with the power in the relationship. I'm trying to get there, let's put it that way. Because I do. And I want to, I mean, what I learned, it's funny because a term that I learned in health coaching school was like crowding out. We talk about that in like nutrition, meaning like, okay, so if you want to eat healthier instead of using the word diet, because you don't want to like, you don't want to ever think about cutting back, restricting, eliminating, that kind of thing. So we use the word crowd out, which is more, okay, maybe you add 1 more serving of vegetables to your plate so that it actually, you only have a plate. You can't stack it too much. But if you add 1 more serving of vegetables, then there won't be enough room to maybe have the like 3 servings of mac and cheese instead, right? So crowding out. So I'm like, maybe I'll start taking that approach and crowd out me hanging out with this person or crowd out my feelings for this person by going on many dates with other people.
And have you started that method?
Well, I'm on Hinge, so I do I look every once in a while. I've never been a serial dater. I've never been a very heavy dater in the past. Like I've had serious relationships, or I pretty much had situationships, pretty much, or I've gone on onesie twosie dates, that kind of thing. But no, like I have a handful of like, that was literally something I wrote on my like to-do list today, was like go through my Hinge, because like it'll be like a week and then I have like 50 plus like matches in there where people have sent me or whatever. So I'm like, okay, I need to go through, and like I really want to be intentional about dating, and because I have been treated better. I know what better feels like. And again, it's just like, why am I holding on to the story with this one person? It's the one person. That's it. Because everyone else is like, you're not treating me right. Bye.
What's the story that you've been able to identify? Have you been like,
Yeah, I mean, I've known this person for a very, very long time. So
so there's a high level of connection there then that, that makes sense.
It's like, I can't let go of the friendship, I guess. It's like,
sure.
And can there be an in between? But we've already crossed the line. So can there be? I don't know, because we're both physically attracted to each other still. So
Well, and that makes it nearly impossible because you get together to be friends and end up having sex, and that's how the story goes.
that's how it goes.
Yes. That makes it a little harder because all that oxytocin that gets released after the fact just strengthens that connection. So I feel you. I've been there. I get it. When we talk about like intentional dating, and something I do with my clients, I did it with Nick when he came on. I talk about the 5 needs, 5 wants, and 5 boundaries. Have you, when you said that you were doing work around really identifying, I think you said prior to Love is Blind, really identifying what you wanted in a partner. Let's do that real quick. So like the needs being non-negotiables, like they're not optional, whether that's someone's career or their character, things like that. The needs being, or the wants being preferences, and then the boundaries being like deal breakers. So when you think of, totally putting on the spot, so whatever you but when you think of 5 needs in a partner, where does that take you?
The first thing that came up is like safety. Like I want to feel emotionally safe, more than anything with that person. You know, and I want them to feel that way too with me. Or that I provide that safety for them, because I feel like that's been something in a relationship that I've had, is that I feel like I feel like I'm putting a lot of trust in them. And so I'm like giving them that safety persona, but then they break up with me and I'm like, wait a second, I thought you were a safe zone, you know, like, but then I'm like, well, maybe I wasn't that for them. And maybe that's why, because they didn't have that emotional connection with me. Like I was the one always being vulnerable and they weren't being vulnerable with me.
Oh, sure. So being more aware of ensuring that that's mutual, that it's being reciprocated. Right. Okay. Yeah. No, that makes sense.
Yeah. Like I'm sure that a lot of these guys I've dated are actually like emotionally unavailable, and I'm attracting them because they're rejecting themselves, because hello, that's what I did forever.
And that being part of your programming, right? If we really dug into that, why do you find emotionally unavailable men attractive? Well, there's probably a reason for that. So being aware of that. Okay. So someone who's safe.
Yeah, someone emotionally, so emotionally connected, emotionally safe, a need. Gosh, I'm like distinguish between a need and a want. I want them to, or I need them to obviously be like financially sound.
That's on my list.
I do. I need them to be financially sound, because there will be a time I do not want to work. I want to be a stay-at-home mom. Take care of us. I'm sure I will find something to do, because I don't think I can sit still, but you know,
of course.
I want to feel safe that I can do that and not have the pressure that I have to work and only have, 6 weeks of maternity leave, because I think that's fucking stupid in America. Like other countries, you get like 5 months off. So dumb. Anyways, but this is so hard.
We could do 3 needs.
I'm like, I know. I'm like, I need them. Well,
what about like character, or like someone who's like funny, or
I want someone that is funny.
Okay, so that's a want more than a need.
Yeah, I would say that.
Okay.
I don't know.
What about aesthetically?
Funny. Yeah, aesthetically. Granted, I am very attracted to like guys who honestly are over like between 6 and 6'4", like brunette, have a little bearded scruff going on.
Damn, you are specific.
Tone bodies, not big like a meathead gym goer. I want like a tone body, tone. Like I like them to be fit. I need them to be very like health conscious. They have to be health conscious. I need them to be very open-minded to the things that I feel like I'm a very open-minded person, and I like hearing other people's perspectives about things, because I feel like it's a learning opportunity for me. So I want them to be open-minded to what I have to say, and my beliefs and my thoughts and opinions as well, around anything, or wanting to be open-minded to grow in a particular area. Or if I'm like, hey, I want to go on this like weird couples retreat and like do tantra shit. Like I want them to be open to be like, yeah, it sounds kind of cool. Like never done anything like that, but I'll do it because you want to, kind of thing.
Right.
Versus being like, no, you can go do it.
Yeah.
Like,
so you want somebody who's up for adventure, who's willing to do new things, try new things.
Yes. And like grow with me. Like, I need someone who wants to grow with me.
Okay.
Always.
See, those are all good.
Yeah, those are good. Yeah, I had to get it going. I had to get it going. Yeah, I mean, yeah, there's probably a lot of needs that I have. I mean, non-negotiables, obviously, I don't want them to be a cigarette smoker. Gross.
Right there with you. So are these things when you're on the app, are you like, do you find yourself, we're going to finish and do boundaries here in a second because I want to hear your deal breakers, but do you find yourself being really selective on the apps because of wanting this toned 5 o'clock shadow brunette?
No. No, I would say, prior to doing a lot of this healing work, yes, I would have been more selective. Now, no, like, especially like on Hinge, you can, they have like bios and they answer questions and things like that. And
I know, Kelly, I know all about it.
Yeah, so I do like reading. I do read those, and maybe if someone sounds funny, like maybe I'm not totally like attracted to them, like first, love is blind kind of thing, or love is first sight. But I am looking at things and I'm like, okay, like I've been in a situation where I was not physically really physically attracted to someone, and then I was hanging out with them so much that I became physically attracted to them.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was like, wow, because their personality and their energy, just everything just made them just so freaking cute. So I know that is possible. And again, because of the work that I've done, and I believe also the experience on Love is Blind, obviously it did help me because I had to make a connection without ever seeing someone, and so I do look for qualities within that text, or if they're leaving a voice memo or something like that, I'm looking at that stuff, and I will more likely swipe right on that person if I'm like, oh cool, they're like into like mindset stuff, or that was like a really funny thing that they wrote. Like, I do want humor in my relationship. I do need that. I do need humor. But yeah, so I'm definitely more open. But granted,
that's very involved of you.
Yeah, but granted, they're still the guys. But I'm like,
yeah,
this one, I'm probably just swiping because they're very attractive right now.
I think that's the hardest part for me on the dating apps, because if they're too attractive, I'm like, okay, what are you up to? You're probably a narcissist. So like, I'm like, nope. So I'll get rid of them if they're too attractive. Right. But then if they're not like attractive enough, which as you're describing, I am so like an energy person. So I can be around somebody who I wouldn't probably swipe on maybe on an app, but if like intellectual foreplay is my, that's going to get me going. So someone who's really smart, who can really like have good conversation. Yeah. And that's hard to do on the app. So I find myself like, it's damned if you do, damned if you don't for the man, because I'm like, you're too pretty. No, you're not pretty enough. No. So that's good for you. You are definitely like being a lot more open-minded about it. The organic connection is obviously so much easier, but once you start having those conversations, sometimes you can find connection in there. What about for your boundaries? So let's just do 2. So what are 2 like deal breakers?
Yeah.
Besides cigarette smoking.
Yeah. I mean, I would say I am not I don't want to accept behaviors where the guy is not putting forth the effort and not showing up for me. Like, I have obviously been in a situationship for too long that it's, and before then, I mean, I dated guys that just didn't put me first. And it's like, I'm done playing the rejection story. Like, I don't want to be living in that anymore. I want someone to show up. So it's like, okay, if they're not, like, I'm not going to entertain the behavior for as long as I have, let's put it that way, like, so that is a really big, I want someone that is going to, just really show up for me and like be there. A boundary, I think, I would say like maybe I haven't like worked on the boundary between 2 people. I want to say maybe like our alone time, like actually implement, like having that, and like, I wouldn't want someone that is literally smothering me because I've been so alone. I've been on my own for so long that I couldn't have that. Like, but I want them to involve me in things. Like, hey, maybe I don't know, like I don't necessarily want to do like everything together, but I want to do most things together. But if we need our alone time, like I want that space to be respected for both of us. Kind of.
So what you're describing is interdependency. You want the ability for you each to have your own thing, but then to still be a partnership and still be connected,
right?
While you can do your own things, but then bring it back together. I think that is so important, especially as somebody as driven as you are and who stays busy and active, and like you do need that space.
Yeah.
But then also craving connection and wanting to know that they'll be vulnerable and available to you, like when you're wanting that connection. I think I've noticed that's my programming. So when we talk about, you being attracted to emotionally unavailable men, I can relate to that. And usually it's like time is something that I'm attracted to men that don't have a lot of time. And so I constantly find myself in that loop of like, allowing it to reaffirm this belief that I'm not important or that I'm not a priority, when I'm like, okay, but you keep literally choosing men who don't have time. There's plenty of men who pursue me who have plenty of time.
Right.
You're not that fun. You're not that whatever.
Yeah, that's so true.
I'm like aware of that for sure. Yeah, that like circle of control again. Like if we don't want to be rejected, as you're saying, we have to stop choosing the type of men who reject.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I just don't want to live that story anymore. So I'm making changes this year.
How to make those changes. So Kelly, where can people find you? What your social media? Do you have a website? Where can you be found?
Yeah, so Instagram is most where I hang out. It's Chase Life with Kelly on Instagram. I've been showing up a little bit more on TikTok. So it's actually I am Kelly Chase on TikTok. And then I do have a website, but it's I don't know. It needs some work. But it's chaselifetogether.com if you want to check that out. But
okay, is that where
Instagram?
If someone wanted to do like coaching with you or something, should they just contact you through Instagram?
Yeah, I would say contact me through Instagram. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, very good. Kelly, I appreciate you hanging out and being so vulnerable and so relatable today. I really appreciate it. This was good conversation. And I hope that you find your emotionally available man, and I at some point will do the same.
Yes. Cheers to that. Thank you.
Thanks, Kelly, for hanging out. Wishing you all the best on that intentional dating journey, and hope you find that 6'4" scruffy man. Thank you all for hanging out with me today on Relatable Relationships Unfiltered. Make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel, sign up for my newsletter, and find me on Instagram at Dr. Elizabeth Fedrick.